watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
These sick fucks, you've seen one too many movies.
I said, don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm Rowan.
Hey, it's Exilia.
Hi, this is Mike.
And yeah, episode number 4. And did you think we'd make it this far?
Never.
We had to redo it, and I asked
deja vu.
we had to redo the intro, and I asked the same question. So
Nope, didn't think so.
no, we said we didn't think so. So we're gonna start off a little different. I am gonna start off not with what movie we're gonna do, but we're gonna make a special announcement that I haven't told either one of these guys.
What?
Dun
No.
dun dun.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I need a Xanax.
So we have to fulfill one of our commitments because we have our first Patreon.
Oh my god, are you kidding
Who
me?
is that?
So
Applause.
We have it to give a shout out to one of probably St. John's most fabulous women.
Oh, is it my sister?
It is Cecily.
Oh.
Cecily Herbert.
Oh, so sweet.
Cecily
is it
Herbert
number one
is
fan?
my life. I love that woman.
Cecily Herbert is now a proud monthly subscriber of Patreon.
I love you, Cess.
Sweet.
I miss you.
So she now gets to get a shout out and a thank you card.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
So we have to make a thank you card, and she gets to join our monthly Google Hangout that we promise.
Now we gotta start doing them.
So
Thanks,
now
We
sis.
should have her on an episode.
yeah, that's right. We'll figure something special out for her.
Yes.
And I figure I might as well just do the plug now, and then I don't have to do it at the end. If you want to join Cecily in becoming a horror hound, you can go to patreon.com/itslayspodcast, and there's lots of tiers there and cool things you can get, like thank you cards, handmade ones, probably by Exilia because I don't have any art skills.
They'll be covered in dead bugs and swamp mud.
But you know what? Let's announce the movie. Does someone other than me want to say what the movie is?
I will. It
Go
is
ahead.
Rob Zombie's debut House of 1,000 Corpses, which was released in, depending on what you go by, either 2002 or 2003, because IMDb, which I normally consider the Bible for film, says 2003, but my Blu-ray says 2002. So interpret that however you wish.
And we will start with the trailer. Here is the trailer.
Howdy, folks. You like blood, violence, freaks of nature?
On a stormy Halloween night, 4 young people set out across the back roads of America
What's that? It's a hitchhiker.
What, should we stop?
We can't leave her out here in the rain.
in search of a mysterious figure known only as
Dr. Satan.
You know anything about the legend of Dr. Satan?
Yeah, I can show you.
Dr. Satan! Ah, Dr. Satan!
what they uncovered
You ain't seen nothing yet.
is the most horrifying and shocking tale of carnage ever seen.
Well, I bet you'd stick your head in the fire if I told you could see hell.
You seen this girl?
Yeah, they want to play Nancy Drew with this local legend that people call Dr. Satan.
Stupid kids probably got themselves lost.
Let's get out of this nut house.
The boogeyman is real. And you found him. It's showtime!
Please don't kill us.
From director Rob Zombie comes a journey into hell.
This can't be real, this can't be real, this can't be real.
House of 1,000 Corpses.
I'm a tiger.
So, House of a Thousand Corpses, the last of the reign of Exilia's picks.
For now.
How do we generally feel about going into this movie? Why did you choose it? Why?
Well, because it's one of my favorite horror movies. Besides, whatever. I don't care if people don't like it. But I like it, so.
She likes it. So do we want to just get right into it then? Exilia's speechless on how much she loves it, so.
Okay, I must say, I've seen this several times. I haven't seen it for probably a couple years, and, still feel the same way about it.
How about you, Mike? How do you feel going into this movie? Is it a movie you are familiar with?
I was fairly familiar with it. I actually saw it when it originally came out in theaters.
That's awesome.
Yes, with 5 or 6 of my friends, and my brother was also in the theater with one of his friends, or maybe it was a girlfriend or something, but sat like 3 rows in front of us and didn't talk to us. And half the people that I saw it with really loved it, including me, and half of them really hated it, and then I never spoke to them again. Actually, I was joking, but I think there's a couple of them that I probably didn't. Anyway.
I feel like that is kind of the overall theme when it comes to Rob Zombie. I think about other podcasts I've heard or things I've read that deal with reviewing and talking about Rob Zombie is you either really love him or you really, really hate him.
It's true, and I get it. I totally understand, your feelings one way or the other.
I thought you said today that a lot of people think this movie's like a 12-year-old boy movie. Which, I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I really enjoy it, so.
I feel a lot of the critiques I see about him are usually about his scripting, and that
so it wasn't necessarily about this movie? Or him in general?
Well, just his movies in general. The scripting is very, crude and crass, and it's aimed at this teenage boy demographic.
Well, he's a fanboy, first of all, and he's usually trying to harken back to the Grindhouse era, which was not exactly known for its witty, convoluted, brilliantly plotted scripts, and frankly, that's not why we watch them.
Exactly. So let's start off at the beginning, where a story always starts. Probably in my top 5 favorite openings of a movie.
Yeah, great opening. And all I kept thinking about the whole time was how much I wanted that fried chicken.
My first note is hot and spicy fried chicken. Yum.
Yes.
I want that chicken so bad, even though it looks filthy and he's holding it in his hands that probably hadn't been washed all day and covered in makeup and blood and other gru, but I didn't care. I looked at that chicken and I immediately, Pavlovian response, just salivation.
Same.
And I was gonna say, I feel just from the get-go of it, you can really tell how much Rob Zombie is a fanboy of horror.
Mm-hmm.
Just, we start off, the atmosphere is immediately set. I love the atmosphere that it's, this, southern, just, we just said, it's very grindhouse looking. It's, dirty looking. You almost feel dirty looking at it. And I love the scripting. Everything about it I love. And I love that we get, a 2 kill count within the first, 3 minutes.
Yeah, before the opening credits even roll up.
I love the museum, and I have that, it's definitely a place that we would go when we're in the States based on some sort of, Atlas Obscura entry of weird places to see in the States.
Except that, as we know, anybody who would have tried to write that entry would have been dead in their house.
When they're, writing that book, I'm like, oh, they should, work for that website.
Oh my god, this is 2 podcasts in a row. I forgot to say, spoiler alert.
I mean, if you don't know there's going to be a spoiler alert at this point,
just
then...
stop listening.
Yeah.
We just give up.
We were also telling Mike prior to the actual taping, when Rowan and I were in the States in October, we saw this massive billboard, and it was like best dang BBQ in VA in Virginia, and we stopped there, and it was like this gas station called Smiley's, and it was just like the corniest looking place. It was bright yellow with like a smiley face, and I don't know, it had this, I mean, they didn't look like, but it had that weird like food in a gas station vibe, but it was delicious.
Yeah, I felt like I was gonna get murdered at any moment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and, you know, sort of like the gas station in that movie, it's obviously a callback to every movie ever, but it's so brilliant because, you know, like food, and more specifically delicious irresistible fried chicken and gasoline, that's like such a perfect, you know, last stop, like meat trap. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
and
it's
I think
a hook.
it was like, it was such a southern place too, and then this place we were at, Smiley's, was like very southern as well. I think that's where I'm like drawing this parallel.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say too, like when we get in with the intro, like I feel like we immediately know that what caliber of knowledge of horror we're in, because we're introduced to Captain Spaulding first and foremost, played by the iconic Sid Haig. Like, is there like anyone more horror, like other than maybe Tom Savini?
Oh, he's a true icon. True icon.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'd say especially as we go on in the present, like, Captain Spaulding's like so iconic now. And I mean, this is the movie that started that. But God bless Sid Haig. God bless him.
His whole thing was like, fuck your mama, fuck your sister, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, most of all, fuck you. And like, it was like, that's like one of my favorite scenes. And he just like shoots the guy. If there's just so much passion behind that, fuck you.
He's like, yeah.
He truly means it. He truly means it.
He does.
And he does such a good job, the whole, and any scene he's, I mean, he steals the scene in any scene he's in this movie, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that Rob Zombie was actually very wise to only sprinkle him throughout, to have the movie bookended with him and then have him pop up like in the middle, because if, as we find out in Devil's Rejects, when he's in the whole movie essentially, you just want, he just chews everything up, so you want to sort of like keep our appetite a bit whetted, but also tantalize us.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And he does so well with like balancing that like horror with humor. Mm-hmm. I find just because, like he's super funny in all of his scenes, but it still has that tinge of like terrifying, because you're just like, you can tell how out there this guy is, this character. And yeah,
I also love when he's like, like the thing with his teeth.
The tie.
Yeah.
I see. We could just have a whole episode of me gushing over Captain Spaulding.
Where I actually got one of my tattoos when we lived in Calgary, they had a signed like picture. He had been to that tattoo parlor.
Wow.
I was like, that's so cool.
I actually wondered, because I never really paid attention before, but when I was rewatching it for the podcast, I was like, oh man, are those like cool tattoos on his arms like actually his, or was that for the character? I just assumed they were his. And maybe one of those is what he got there at that tattoo parlor.
The John Wayne. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I don't know why I didn't write that down. So before we talked about the intro bit. I gotta put this out first. Like, the cast of this movie is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
Crazy good.
Yeah, I have the note here. Casting is brilliant. Specifically the family, too.
Yeah.
Him and the family, like...
Bill Moseley, God.
Oh, another icon.
Yeah, like, I'm sure at some point we're gonna do Texas Chainsaw 2.
Oh yeah, I have lots of Texas Chainsaw 2 notes.
Exilia's never seen it.
Oh my god, and there's a beautiful Scream Factory Collector's Edition Blu-ray.
I've got it. And, what Bill Moseley is amazing. I mean, I already know, Mike, that I know that you've written down, who plays the mom.
Oh, I've got it in all caps, 4 exclamation points, and underlined, the queen, icon, legend, rest in peace, Karen Black. Like, literally one of the most brilliant, charismatic actresses of the 20th century. Like, just
she was fantastic.
True icon. What inspired casting? Because at 2002, she was sort of like, she was always making shit tons of movies and stuff, but, like, nothing, she went from, being in all these, like, Academy Award winning movies in, like, the 70s and stuff to sort of, like, disappearing off of the radar of, like, mainstream cinema, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, she is just, again, chewing up the fucking scenery in this movie, and it's like,
She was busy starring in Full Moon Entertainment movies.
Hey, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, she's amazing.
I thought Sherry Moon Zombie was, like, the perfect person to play Baby.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think this is her first acting credit, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was,
I think it was.
Probably, I imagine she's probably in music videos and stuff, but for a feature
like,
film?
legitimate, yeah.
Her voice and, like, that laugh she always does, and, like, just she kind of, like, you could picture her as, like, a baby, like a little kid kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like the smile that she always has, like, it's a, like, maniacal smile, even when she's not kind of acting crazy, and, like, her big eyes and stuff. It's just, yeah, she just
sweet,
oozes
but
that.
also, like, sadistic.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to talk about the rest of the intro a little bit. We had Exilia kind of reenact for us
my version,
her version of Captain Spaulding murdering those 2 people, but then we kind of. To me, like, when I think Rob Zombie film, after that, where we get into, like, the black and white footage with the House of 1,000 Corpses, like, song by Rob Zombie.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I like
yeah,
that song.
like, to me, like, that, when I think of Rob Zombie, that's the aesthetic I think of.
Oh, absolutely. That, like, kind of, metal-tinged, like, swampy, sort of dark. Oh, I love it.
And I don't really want to get into it on this because I'm sure at some point we will review, but I would like your guys' opinion on, like, I remember seeing when they did the remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, there is no way that they were not inspired by Rob Zombie. Because I believe this was before, was it not?
Yeah, but Rob Zombie was inspired by the original one.
But I mean, like, the music and the aesthetic of the remake, like, they used kind of the black and white film.
Did they?
The same, like, kind of, like, creepy, old-timey music.
Oh, well, the mamas and the papas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For the black and white footage, you mean when they're going back to, like, when there was the nuclear testing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just felt to me, I always felt like those 2 had a connection.
Oh, yeah.
Because they... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it was a couple years after House of 1,000 Corpses.
Yeah. Because I really like the musical placement in this movie. Like, when they're torturing the person, like, Otis and Baby, and it's like that super I can't remember what the song is now, but it's like super happy. Or when the sheriff, the 2 like police officers and the dad show up, and then like that music is like not something typical for that scene.
Yeah, it's like an old country.
Yeah, like I really like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the benefit, one of the many benefits of, I guess, being a musician yourself, and being so hands-on, is that, like, you really, and in him, taking care of all their, like, visuals and videos and stuff, it's like he knows how to fucking marry music and film, like, perfectly. He knows what goes with what juxtapositions to use. I love it.
That's the thing, because you could do that but it not really work, or you could overdo it and then it's like too much, but I think he does it like properly and at the right times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say too, like, to me, and we kind of had this kind of little debate, although we all agreed on it. Like when we talked, I think when we talked about It Follows, I think movies like that and stuff, like, to me, when I go into a Rob Zombie film, the reason I'm going into it is definitely a style over substance case. Mm-hmm. Like, Rob Zombie has a very specific style, whether it be the way stuff looks, the way stuff is said, the way it sounds, and it's like, that is what I'm going for.
Yes, but I mean, like, every aspect of the movie is like something that he takes great care with. Like you said, it's the way it looks, the way it's cast, the way it's written, the way it sounds, like the music, everything. You know, the grain of the film.
I think that's something that when I first saw this movie really attracted to me to it, is like, you know how he does those like short cuts in and out of like different, it'll be like a regular scene and then it will cut to like Otis with the cheerleaders or just like words or whatever.
Oh, I love
and
those.
Then and then it's like sometimes it'll be like the inverted color. Like, I just love, I don't know, there's something about that I really love because it kind of breaks up a monotony of just like watching it in, you know, real time and it looks like realistic. Like, that just kind of gives it a little break.
Yeah. I love this movie. I love this movie. You don't know what my rating will be, but I love this movie. And I also want to bring up, like, I guess just because it's overarching, is like the color palette throughout the film. Like, I really enjoy the color palette. He's very aware of that. Like we said, it kind of an advantage when you come not just from a different arts background, but like he's also very well known for directing music videos and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, like just his use of like blues and reds and some of the, like, the unique shots where he would do like the thermal vision and stuff.
That's what I meant by the inverted, like
split screen, all that.
Yeah, the split screen, that's cool too.
But yeah, I love that.
In terms of filming, Rowan and I read this really interesting thing. So the house that they used was in another movie, used originally for another movie. Do you remember the name of that? Something Horror House. And it was on the Universal Studios, like, plot, or what's it called?
Yeah, like their
sound lot. And they actually refused to stop the trolley tours for tourists during the filming. So, like, a bunch of the scenes were wrecked and they'd have to, like, redo them because it was just, like, tourists everywhere while they're trying to film this movie.
Oh, wow. Oh, the best little whorehouse in Texas.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So, to get back a little bit, let's talk about, because after our introduction, we have that kick-ass rock song come in by Zombie. We get introduced to our main cast.
Oh, yay.
I wanted everyone's opinions on this, on the cast. On the cast, the characters, like, did you have a favorite? Did you hate any of them?
Like, the youngsters?
Yeah, the youngsters.
Well, okay, we all need to acknowledge, obviously, that Dwight from The Office is one of them.
Yeah.
And he's very charming and funny in this, too, as he always is. And
this is one of Rainn Wilson's first acting credits.
Yeah, and what a credit it is. What a credit.
I actually hate him in this. He's such a wet blanket.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, he's very condescending. But, okay, I'm not going to lie, the second girl I do not care for, and I didn't, and I was just like, please stab her at the beginning of the movie. But
his girlfriend?
Yeah. The other two are like two of my favorite people anyway. Like, one of them is Chris Hardwick, who is from like The Nerdist and At Midnight, and he does all sorts of stuff, you know, podcasts, TV shows, and I just think he's brilliant. I love that he, like Rainn Wilson, you know, is like a comedy person. Because I just love the whole, like we were talking about earlier, that like, you know, marriage of horror and comedy and how they're really not different at all. And then the other one is Erin Daniels, who is, you know, our final girl, and she is from one of my absolute favorite TV shows of all time, The L Word. Holler. I love her. I've watched that show like 20,000 times, and she plays one of my favorite characters, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
I feel the exact same way. Well, I mean, I didn't like... What was his name in it? What was Rainn Wilson's name in it? I can't even remember at this point, but...
Oh, it was Ben?
No. Mike, do you know?
It was... Jerry was Chris Hardwick. And he was... Oh, what was he? Bill.
Jerry and Bill.
I just like... I don't like Bill. His girlfriend was super annoying also. But same, Denise and Jerry, like, I really like them. Jerry, I could see how people would think he was, like, 4 12-year-old boys, because he was a bit obnoxious, but I just, like, always think, when I think of the movie, I always think when he gets out of the ride, he's like, Dr. Satan, like...
Yes, he's just enthusiastic.
He's, like, pretty funny, yeah.
And he's not as condescending as the other characters are. They're, like, you know, being
he's
very patronizing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's, like, a stoner guy.
Yeah.
I like that we're also in a time period where... It was a little more... It wasn't acceptable, but it was a little more acceptable to put, like, $4 in your gas tank.
I mean, we used to do that all the time.
True. Different times.
If I had a car, I'd just go, like, gas station to gas station, putting $4 in the tank. How far can I get? Oh, wait. Yeah.
But, yeah, I thought the introduction was pretty good to them. We pretty much get them right to Captain Spaulding's right away. We find out, I thought it was very well explained, like, that they're doing this book. They have this whole conversation.
Yeah, but it didn't take too much time, and this is what I loved about it, and it's why you can tell that he, A, is very talented at what he does, and B, loves horror movies. He cuts through the, like, you know, requisite, like, 10 minutes of them in the car or whatever, like, getting all their shit together and just having, like, boring-ass conversations that are just exposition. He cuts all the exposition out and just says, like, boom, here they are. We're throwing them right into this, you know, nest of murder. You're getting very little in the way of, you know, like, expository character introductions, and you just sort of have to figure it out as you're going along.
And I think, and I think, you know, a lot of people don't give this movie, I think, enough credit, because everyone, you know, like I said, a lot of the critiques is like, oh, it's for teenage boys and blah, 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 but I think it does ask, like, you know, at least one super, like, existential important question, which hopefully by the time we finish reviewing it, we'll kind of come to an answer, but that is, how long is a piece of string?
How damn long?
Probably my all-time favorite Captain Spaulding quote that I use in life every day. That's like literally my favorite part.
I love that out of the whole movie, that's what you took away.
Well, Rowan, actually, like, you've always said that.
Yeah, how long is
Didn't
piece of string?
your grandfather
too
say
damn
that?
long.
Yeah, too damn long.
I love it. The murder ride. Why does this not exist in real life?
Really,
and why have I not been on it?
How do we know that it doesn't exist?
I want to know how they picked, like, 3 really random murderers.
They were pretty horrific.
I mean, Ed Gein,
Ed
yes,
Gein,
but, like,
Fisher, I'd say, isn't that obscure if you're into that.
But
side note,
do you just,
can
like...
I tell a quick story about him?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, in one of my language classes, we had to do mandatory presentations. You know, we had to do like however many papers during the semester, and then at the end, everybody had to get up and do like a 5-minute presentation on a topic of their choice. Could be anything. So, you know, people were getting up there and doing like Black Sabbath and shit. And anyway, and the funny thing is, I was in a class, I was in the 10th grade, and this was an 11th grade class because, you know, I was quote unquote advanced. And so I was there with all these people, like, I didn't really know them. They were all older than me. So, of course, like an idiot, I get up and I'm like, I'm going to do a presentation on serial killers. And it was right before lunch, and I'll never forget it. I showed a couple of slides and stuff. And one of them was, I bought this book on serial killers, and there was a picture in it of that he shows actually in this movie when he talks about Albert Fish, showing, because, you know, he used to stick, like, needles in his sack. Because he was, like, fucked up and a masochist. And, you know, when they took you could see, like, the leg bones and sort of, like, the flesh around it, and then you could see the, like, flesh of the sack hanging down, and just these random needles, like, hanging between his legs. So I showed that to this class right before lunch, and
God.
it was awful. Everybody must have thought I was off my fucking rocker, and, like, thank God this was before all sorts of, like, school violence, because I probably would have been arrested.
I don't know why.
I had never heard of it.
I have no
before.
idea why, but when you said that you were going to tell us a story, I was just imagining you, like, telling us about a paper, and that you were like, oh, we had to do, like, our heroes, and I picked this guy.
No.
I was like, where is this going? But yeah, this murder ride, also probably one of my funnier, I thought one of the funnier little quips in it was, when he's, like, really excited about being in the ride. I don't know why. It cracks me up every time, and like, it's just, like, really quick, and Captain Spaulding's like, keep your arms in the ride, and he's just like, sorry, Captain Spaulding. That's, like, I love that part.
Yeah, he's just, like, completely into it. He's bought it.
Oh, it's so good, so good. And then, yeah, so then we find out about Dr. Satan, who is I feel it's almost like a red herring, because you feel like that is going to be the villain of this movie. We're kind of introduced to him as a villain. And, I mean, realistically, he isn't.
No, I mean, even though he gets introduced, it's really just sort of a quick, it's almost like a cameo. Yeah, exactly. He's just there. It's everybody else that's the issue.
And we start to see it, I feel more and more then. I was going to say throughout the movie, and we kind of brought it up a little bit when we talked about the introduction. I love the use of, like, the VHS quality to the normal quality. So we kind of get these, like, explaining, kind of little tidbits to help build the characters up.
Sorry, to go back to the Dr. Satan thing, I was a bit... Anyways, I can't remember... I'm pretty sure I read this. I don't think I was daydreaming, but I think originally, before things, like, really got underway with writing or production or anything, I think the grandfather was actually supposed to be...
Yeah, he was.
Dr. Satan.
He was.
So then it would have been more... There would have been more of him in there, if it was a grandfather.
Yeah, I did read that he was slated to play Dr. Satan, and something happened.
Also, the actor that was playing the grandfather, he was, like, having really bad problems with heart disease during this filming. So a lot, like, I guess that's why some of his scenes he's sitting down, because it just, like, got progressively worse as the filming went on. And then, like, 2002, he actually just, like, died in a car accident.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why his character's not in House of Thousand Corpses at all. They took him out.
You mean Devil's Rejects?
Or sorry, Devil's Rejects. Sorry. Yeah, because they took the character out just, like, out of respect. But that could have something to do with why he didn't end up being Dr. Satan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I had forgot about that. So let's talk about the family, the Firefly family. What are our thoughts?
I'm just gonna say one of the things that I kind of love about Rob Zombie in this movie in particular is, well, okay, first of all, so we were talking about those, like, VHS scenes and stuff, and, like, the ones, where Baby's there with her knife and talking about what she's gonna do, and, he has the cheerleaders and stuff. They start showing that, like, literally less than 5 minutes after those characters are introduced. So, I love, again, that to me is him cutting down on, like, like, he knows that we know what they're gonna do. Like, this is a classic horror setup, so he knows that we are anticipating this, so he's not hiding anything. He's just showing it. He's like, yep, here we go. This is, like, almost Hitchcockian in its brilliance. But, where was I going with this? I just, like, completely lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Cut it out.
When you were talking about the scenes with Baby, like, and the cheerleaders, and how he, like, cuts these scenes and shows them doing that.
I think you made your point. was that he knows like we already know.
Yes,
we already know what the trope is.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that he, like, this was sort of pre-everything being on the internet and all the social media and stuff, but also post-Scream, so there was that, like, self-awareness, but there still wasn't, like, quite as big of a, like, fan culture or whatever, I guess. So, like, to me, him just acknowledging, like, in a subtle way that we all know exactly what's going to happen was just a brilliant tactic,
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's kind of, especially with this movie, that's kind of like the genius of it.
Oh yeah, so now I remember where I was going with that. So it shows them, and they're obviously, demented as hell, to put it lightly, as evidenced by what they do, and from those videos right from the beginning. And you see those videos before they get to the house, so again, you know what's going to happen. But when they get there, they're all just sitting around, like, fucking eating popcorn in their pajamas and stuff. So they're also, and they just, like, bicker with each other. So I just love that, and he always does that. It's like, they're demented and fucked up, yet they're also, like, a normal family.
Yeah, family. Yeah, exactly. In terms of those videos too, I read that the videos of, or like the cutscenes to Otis and Baby that are just like ranting were actually inspired by the Manson family's home videos. Apparently
cool.
They did home videos.
I didn't know that. And also he does talk about the Manson family because they're reading Helter Skelter at the beginning.
Sorry, what did you have any other feelings about the family in general?
Well, I have lots of feelings, but that's sort of, that to me is the takeaway that I love from it is, they're fucked up, psycho, sociopathic, whatever, but, they are a family and they behave like one, and it's sort of weirdly realistic.
I like that too. I also like I said before, I really like the casting. The family, everybody brings something, I feel, to the table. They're all weird, but they're all, like, also very distinct from each other. Like, they kind of have their own... I don't even know how to explain it. None of them are, alike. Like, Tiny's whole thing is that he was, like, burned, and he's, like, big, and then...
You almost feel bad. Like, I was gonna say, like, I feel like they really set it up, like, Tiny's so interesting, because, well, he's not tiny, but... Like,
I think that's the joke.
Yeah, I get the joke, but like, it's so interesting because he, like, you go in and out of these moments with him where, like, it doesn't really seem like he wants to.
Yeah, well, like when he let Denise go.
Yeah,
he was just content. All he wanted to do was, be in her company while he ate his dog food. Like, that's. And Rufus was the presentable one to the outside world.
He wasn't eating dog food. I may point out he was eating a cereal called Agatha Krispies.
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
I died. And this is the first time I ever saw that.
That's the first time I noticed it was doing a deep watch this time of it. I was like, that is amazing.
Okay, but to be fair to me, he was eating it out of a dog food dish.
But yeah, Rufus is like, he doesn't really talk. He's not really in the movie that much. He's kind of just like the brute.
But he's a very striking figure. Like, he's very memorable when he is there.
And he has that like thing on his wolf head, animal. And then Otis is just like sadistic and cruel and weird, and then Baby, like we kind of already talked about, is like sweet but also sadistic, and she kind of has her own vibe, and then the mom's like very theatrical, and then there's the I don't know, I just felt like they all kind of like were part of a recipe to bring like one cohesive thing together.
And I will say, like, I love all of them for their own individual things, but any time that the grandfather was like on camera, like, I was crying. He's so funny throughout this, especially like at showtime when it's just like cutting in and out of these jokes that you have no idea what they're talking about, but it always ends in him saying eating pussy.
And this is something that always like struck me ever since I've ever seen the movie is like, you know how he'll laugh and then he'll like bring his hand up and like close it as if he's like closing off his voice, and he'll just like abruptly stop this weird laugh. Like, I don't know, I really his character is really interesting too.
And also, I will say too that my the nerd in me was like tickled a little bit because they made a comment. I think the grandfather made a comment, and he was like to one of the people where it was just like a Superman joke where he was just like, "Who are you, fucking Jimmy Olsen?" And I giggled about it. No one else has to giggle about it.
I don't know who Jimmy Olsen
Jimmy Olsen is a Superman character.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was pretty funny. Now, I do want to point out one of the things, maybe you guys can correct me, but I think I kind of noticed a goof in it. Was so when the girlfriend calls the dad to let them know where they stopped at this Captain Spaulding's place and we should be there by tomorrow, or no,
11 o'clock that night.
Yeah, 11 o'clock that night. So they set it up, and the dad says, "Oh, like since Halloween is on a school night, they're doing the trick or treating this night." But when they're at the house, Karen Black's character says that it's Halloween night.
No, she says Halloween Eve.
Oh, is it?
Halloween Eve, yeah.
Because then
she talks about... Oh, sorry. She talks about how, like, oh, you guys think it's foolish and kiddish to have Halloween, but she does explicitly say that it's Halloween Eve.
And I just wasn't paying attention.
Yes, because then when it cuts to them all being bound in the house, it's the next morning and it says October 31st, Halloween.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, what did we say his name was? Bill? Yeah. Raines played Bill. Do we think anger management should be given to Bill's girlfriend? Should she in anger management? She was angry this entire movie.
She was. I thought it was kind of rude how she was. These people like let her into their home and are like giving her popcorn and stuff, or like, you know, just letting her generally be there. And they say something and she like has this really snide remark and makes this face. And I'm just like, who just does that when you're like at someone's home that you don't know?
I know, and they don't know they're going to be murdered.
No.
So, yeah, they might be creepy and weird, but, like, they also showed you Southern hospitality, so how about if
and when they're doing, like, the Showtime stuff, and then, like, Baby's doing the performance.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, amazing. But then she just, like, shoves her onto the ground, and she's like, "You fucking slut." And I'm like...
I know, I'm like, I feel like this is kind of uncalled for.
Because at this point, they still, until, like, 3 milliseconds later, like, they don't really know that these people mean harm.
And, like, really, Baby was, like, taking a boa to the, like, skeleton and, like, you know, being provocative with the skeleton, too, and was, like, doing that to everybody. It wasn't specifically about Bill.
And I'm not gonna lie, every now and then, if I see this movie, I see that and wonder if maybe they would have just let them go.
Let them go!
If she hadn't accosted Baby. Like, maybe they would have been like, oh, these kids were really nice, like, you know, bye, see you next time, there's your car. Like, I mean, I know they wouldn't have, but, like, there's a small part of me that thinks maybe they could have endeared themselves and just walked away alive.
Every time I watch this movie at the beginning, some little bit of me is always like, oh, it's going to be different this time.
They'll just eat popcorn and change their tire, wait out the rain, and then just drive away.
Exactly.
And they'll write their book and be condescending.
I also really loved throughout, like, especially like the home video footage, a lot with the cheerleaders and stuff when we have Otis in them. I thought it was kind of like, it's interesting because we have this, you know, like, I'd say it's not a very highbrow movie, but I thought it was interesting that, like, there was a lot of this, like, commentary on, like, social class.
Oh my god, everything. Yes. Absolutely.
And I know, like we said, like, he was really inspired by Manson, and, like, but I also think there's probably a layer to that like, is also probably some of him, Rob Zombie, talking about, you know, class and stuff. and how it can create these desperate people and push people.
There's also a lot of commentary on like North versus South,
Yeah.
like Southern U.S. versus Northern U.S. And like he has that shirt with the American flag.
Burn
It's like,
this
"Burn
flag."
this flag. He's like a Confederate.
And there's
hat, which,
there's
I guess
American
goes along with
flags
it, but-
everywhere, and a lot of them are
And
splattered with blood.
Yeah, well, and they also there's a lot of comments about like how this. Okay, and then I'll get into this like thing that I think's a goof, but how these like youngsters are Yankees and like how they're just down here to like embarrass the Southerners and like, oh, you think we're backwards? Like Captain Spaulding talks about this, Mama Firefly talks about this as well.
Almost everybody mentions it at some point in some capacity.
Yeah, about the division.
Yeah.
But then also, okay, the thing about the goof is. And tell me what you guys think about this. So they call, like Denise calls her dad and was like, oh, I'm going to be home by 11, right? It's dark out. So you would think it's already like nighttime, but they're from the north, which is alluded to several times. They also don't have, they're like the only people that don't have accents, like Southern accents. But then it's just like, it seems like they live somewhere near there, and like the dad comes down, like when the dad comes with the sheriffs, like he knows the sheriffs in these towns, and like they get there very quickly. Like this is in Texas, like set in Texas. It's not like it's like anywhere near, Pennsylvania or wherever they're from. So I'm just like, what's happening here? They're also talking about how they're doing this book about across America, but she's going to be home that night and like didn't show up. So like she's missing.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like home. I just feel like because they're obviously not like teenagers. They're, in their 20s. And I feel like, they were making a trip and stopping to visit her dad and staying with him wherever he lives.
Yeah, but okay, where is he? Okay, so that was like Rowan's like, oh,
matter.
Maybe they're at college.
I just assumed he was, near there, between there and where they live.
And they're so I was reading, and they're actually teenagers, although they look about 30, but they're teenagers, so I'm like, that makes even less sense.
And I mean, realistically, the way I look at it is, doesn't matter, because the only reason this dad exists is so that we can skin him.
I know. Yeah. I'm just like always just like, what is the logic here? I feel like that's a common theme in all of our episodes. I'm just like, where's the logic?
I never ask for logic. I couldn't care less. I really couldn't.
I do want to say, for amazing fashion, I love once the kids have their run-in where they actually find out the family's intentions and they all get knocked out. We go to that scene with the cops interviewing Captain Spaulding and his shirt. I love that shirt.
Oh god, it's
like
amazing. It's classic, iconic.
The pig with the cop hat, and it just says "Pigs is beautiful."
Yeah, I know so too.
I also noticed there's like a lot of people online that sell those shirts.
Oh my god. I mean, he has a whole collection of beautiful, like, slogan graphic t-shirts.
I wonder if he had to make them specifically for this movie.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, that's just people cashing in on the fandom.
Yeah, exactly. The two sheriffs, also amazing. I thought they did an awesome job in this.
That mustache, it was amazing. Everything.
Yeah, Tom Towles, who played Wydell, he actually passed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
R.I.P. I think he was briefly in Devil's Rejects, I think, as a flashback, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But he didn't do very much after this. Like, he passed pretty close. And Walton Goggins as Officer Nash, who I don't know how familiar you guys are with him, but he is in a lot of stuff. I was going to say probably somewhat recent notoriety. He was a big character in Sons of Anarchy. He played a transgendered prostitute that one of the main people was dating.
Oh, I had no idea. I remembered him from The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, and and The Hateful Eight, he was in that too. But I thought he did a really amazing job. I loved their dynamic, that he was like
the dumb young one.
I just want to get like in the shit, man. I want some action. Yeah. And like he had all those comments about the dad, like, oh, the dad better stay out of my way, like. And I thought Wydell was good. Like, he played such a good, like, that's how I imagine, like, small town, southern cop. Like, he's just, like, super nice. And, you know, I don't know. I thought they did really, really well.
Well, I mean, and that's, to me, like, the brilliance of his casting. And you go, like, X was in this, Y was in this, because, I mean, you know, and we all know this in every movie, especially the ones after this, when he had sort of established himself as, like, you know, a horror auteur, and, you know, he could, like, hook even more people, but he always stacks his movies with a combination of, like, just very specific people from movies who either were in like one crazy like cult horror movie or in a shit ton, like, you know, Dee Wallace and people like that, or and everybody else in the movie I always find is like somebody that looks familiar, and you look at their filmography and they've literally been in 700 things over the course of like 30 years, and they're in every TV show guest starring from like the 70s until now, and like all these indie movies, and I just love that because he just completely stacks it. Like, even the people that you don't know who they are, they've been in 800 things, and you've probably seen them a million times.
Yeah, he's really good at picking out very good character actors, and kind of like putting them like in the limelight. Let's kill some of these teenagers in air quotes. Let's talk about some of these deaths. That's what we all really want to talk about.
Well, Rainn Wilson's, what was it, Fish Boy?
Fish Boy.
I mean, that, I will never get that image out of my head.
Fish Boy, I love that kill. I mean, I wish we had seen a little more of it. We saw his hand get cut off. That was pretty much all we really saw.
I mean, I'm glad we didn't, because it was pretty shocking when they reveal him to his girlfriend. Like, that was... I still remember when we first saw that in theaters, just being like, holy fuck, what the fuck?
And I can't remember if it was in that room or if it's the room. It might have been the room Jerry was in. I think it was Jerry. But they had that huge, like, instead of having, like, a wall with wallpaper, they just had, like, that 50-foot billboard for
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah. That was so awesome. I was like, I wish I owned that. Like, what an amazing backdrop. And like that, like I said, this is why I gush over Rob Zombie. It's like these little just nods. Like, I know you are a big horror fan like me, so like you appreciate me dropping these things. And just giving that nod to, like, even though this wasn't released from Universal, like, we'll talk about it a little later, but like one of the things was that this was originally funded by Universal when he made this movie. So it's like that nod to like classic Universal monster pictures.
Yeah.
Just like such a great touch. And yeah, what was your guys' like favorite kill of these four?
Oh, that's a
or
tough
three,
one.
I guess.
Well, it's hard to say. No matter what I say, I'm going to sound like a sociopath. I'm going to say I didn't hate it when Mrs. died, and I found Baby's like brutal multiple stabbing of her in the chest was actually a little bit shocking because it was just so blunt and brutal, and it was just like done, and it was not drawn out. You know, it was sort of like there was a little chase, she falls down, boom, you're dead. And you know, it was Baby getting her hands dirty, which was interesting to me, you know, because she was waving a knife around all the time, but here she is, like, she's just as bad as the rest of them. And also, I quite liked the way that Chris Hardwick died when they lowered them into that pit. For a couple of reasons. One of which was, that whole movie. It's very like earthy, and I mean, you know, I hate to say realistic, but in that it's more of like a slasher movie, and it's not, you know, it's very much like the evil of humans. But then those like people come up out of the mud or whatever and like just drag them down, and it's so messed up. And I was like, is this a supernatural movie? Like, it just sort of made me question everything, and it was just so surreal and unexpected. And I just thought it was a cool little touch, because he does these things that sort of pop out of the woodwork and like very quick, and because it's edited in such a like frenetic manner, sometimes he will do something very quickly, and like even a death, and it'll pass, and you're like questioning it and like what just happened, but then he just moves on very quickly and you can't even dwell on it. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Out of those three, I don't think I like particularly thought any of them were spectacular, to be honest, but it's not really a kill, but I really like at the end where you're like, oh, she's gonna get away. And then she gets picked up by Captain Spaulding, and then Otis like pops up in the back seat, and then she like, there's a scene at the very end where she's like screaming, obviously dies. That was my favorite.
Yeah, well, and it's such a great reveal at the end, simply too, because like, until then, like, you know, we don't know the connection, like, we don't know that there's any connection between Captain Spaulding and those guys.
Yeah, and you sort of, you know, think there is, but they've kept them separate the whole movie, so, you know, you're like, is there, isn't there? And one of the things that I actually loved about that ending, and, you know, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but you did bring it up, X. So, I remember, I will say that when I saw this movie in theaters, it was, honest to God, and, you know, I've been watching horror movies since I was young, and in the 90s, you know, we would watch dozens and dozens of movies every month. Like, me and my friends lived at the video store, just rented everything, had movie channels, would, like, watch all the movies on the movie channels, new ones, old ones, whatever. But we watched a lot of those 90s movies, and I thought that this movie was very much a reaction to that style of 90s, like, teen movie that was, even though I loved them, you know, at the time, it was very, like, slick and neutered and very PG-13, and, you know, like, they weren't formulaic as such for the most part. I mean, a lot of them were, but, you know, they were very clean, and when you had your, like, final girl or whatever, they would get away, and even if there was a sequel, you know what I mean, there might be, like, a cliffhanger at the end, but, like, in this, it was dirty and grimy, and there was, like, nudity. You know, my God, how many breasts were there in this movie? You know, there was mutilated body parts, there was blood everywhere, there was no getting away from it. You saw the deaths happen on screen, and, you know, that was all, to me, very frightening. I found this movie when I saw it, like, to be terrifying. In a good way. I absolutely loved it. That's one of the reasons why it has always stuck around, because it was the first movie in years after that, like, sanitized horror movie boom at the 90s to, like, actually scare me and, like, make my skin crawl. And part of it was that very end when, you know, you're, like, rooting for Denise, and she's the final girl, and she got away, you know, it's very much Texas Chainsaw Massacre callback, right, where she gets in the car out on the road, and then it's like, no, she actually doesn't get away, and it doesn't show her dying, but, like, you know she's not getting out of there. Like, she is out of the frying pan back into the fire.
I think that's what when you're talking about how, like, the other movies were, like, more glossy and stuff like that, I think that's why I really like this movie, is because it's, like, kind of grimy. It's, like, dirty, like, gritty.
It is. It's very dirty. And, like, the subject matter, the way he handles things, and, like you were saying earlier, even the aesthetic of it, you know, there's the VHS, there's the grainy film. It's just, everything is cluttered. It's not, like, a set that's, like, very set design, and, you know, it just looks like some hoarder's house. Like,
Literally, there's like all those dolls just hanging on the front porch, and like, yeah, it's just a mess. Or like the place with the shoes, and there's all the shoes hanging, and then just like a pile. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably favorite kill for me, like Exilia, probably isn't any of them. I really liked when they killed Officer Nash. So, where we have the death of the dad and Officer Nash.
Oh, that was a brilliant
shot.
Scene, yeah.
Yeah, we have, like, the old music
And
playing.
that pause.
And then, yeah, that super long, awkward pause where he has the gun up to Officer Nash's head and there's silence. The music's ended. And it's just, yeah, you're just sitting there. And, yeah, it's super awkward, and I love it. I love how awkward that made me feel.
But that's the one time in the whole movie that, like, you know, we were talking about the, like, really frantic editing of it and how it's a lot, I guess, because of his music video background, especially, because, you know, you kind of have to do frenetic editing in videos. But that's the one moment in, like, the whole movie where, it's out in the daylight, which is, you know, a total break from all the like dark nighttime scenes and underground scenes, and it just is that long take, right? And it's not like frenetically cut like everything else is, so it's that one moment that like it feels different from the rest of the movie, just for, you know, a minute or whatever it is, 45 seconds. But like, you know, to me, the fact that he just completely changed the way that he cut the movie at that point sort of underlines how interesting it is and how he wants to draw your attention to it.
It's such amazing, and like you said, I think it just like I 100% agree. It just really shows you that he takes care with all the little edits, like everything he does. There's like a purpose behind it.
Oh yeah, it's very deliberate.
I gotta bring up. So when they buy all the liquor at Red Hot Pussy Liquor, there's such a good scene with Goober, Gober, Geobert. Such a good scene, and to me it's just like these little like interactions that like just really build the environment, and like I love his scripting on it. Like it was funny. It just, like, had that real grindhouse 70s feel to it.
Oh, yeah, the, like, neon light and stuff.
And it had, like, the Rob Zombie song, Pussy Liquor, which was, like, so good. I love that scene. And back to Murder and Death, I absolutely love this scene where he skins the father and comes down wearing the father. And they're doing, like, the Who's Your Daddy thing. He's, like, giving the big speech.
Oh, my God, yes. There was so much, like... once it hit that point in the movie, like, and with the cops showing up to the house and stuff, I was just like, the patriarchy and authority is ineffectual. Like, this is... Rob Zombie has so much to say here, and it's, like, just being jam-packed into such a short running time. Oh, it's so disturbing.
That scene reminds me... I think this was in, like, the first introduction we filmed that we taped that didn't end up being aired, but that scene just reminds me of watching Silence of the Lambs with my grandmother at supper time with our TV tables. And my grandmother, so my grandmother was, like, highly religious, like, very, like, Baptist. And then they're, like, you know, Buffalo Bill or whatever is taking the skin off of that person, and that's what this, like, scene reminds me of.
Well, I mean, yes, and they do reference Ed Gein at the beginning, so, you know, they're sort of calling back to, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, you know, Silence of the Lambs, all that. It's all taken from kind of, like, what I'll call new American folklore, which is, like, serial killer history. Sadly.
Yeah, I love that scene. Now, I will say, probably contrary to what you were saying, Mike, when we hit the underground, when they're sent underground to Dr. Satan, I love the monster I love the monsters they created underneath. So, like, the people that come out of the mud, like the guards, the giant guards with the weird goggles. I love the look of Dr. Satan. I don't know how you guys felt about that, because we're presented with something totally different at the beginning, that he's just wearing, like, this, like, mask, and it just looks like a guy in a surgeon's outfit, and then you actually see him, and he's like he almost looks like he's being, like, puppeteered.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and when you think about it, it's like, he was hung in a tree or whatever, and it's like, this is how he's alive. He's literally like Weekend at Bernie's, except it's, you know, down the rabbit hole to Wonderland, except it's, you know, the horrific Wonderland.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like, I love the monster creation, but for me, like, I felt it was my least favorite part of the movie. I guess probably because I enjoyed Baby and Otis. I enjoyed the family and stuff, that when we got underground, I felt, to me, it kind of, like, took me out of it a little bit, where I mean, I liked it. Like I said, I liked the look of it, but I was like, this almost feels like a totally different movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, at that moment is when the whole, like, color palette changes and stuff, too, to, like, that very cool, monochromatic, like, shades of blue and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I loved it because, you know, I love Erin Daniels. So, obviously, I'm a fan of whenever she gets a bit of solo screen time. But, I mean, I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, holy fucking Alice in Wonderland. Like, when she wakes up and she's dressed up like the doll, like, clearly she is supposed to be a doll, because that's, like, a recurring motif visually and, you know, thematically for baby doll. But also, you know, I was like, she clearly also resembles Alice in Wonderland, you know, like that blue dress and the socks and stuff like that. And then they dress her up like a fucking rabbit, and she goes down, and, you know, and the whole thing, to me, the whole theme of the movie, and even a lot of the movies like this, the, you know, kind of wrong turn type movies, is it's like, you know, this Alice in Wonderland, like, patronizing, I'm gonna go visit the rabbit hole and, you know, impose my will on them. I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting, and I loved it, and that they did all those, like, kind of visual call-outs to it, and how it does become this, like, completely different atmosphere and mood, right? Like, you're going underground. And they do the same thing, though, in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which obviously Rob Zombie is all about, because, you know, he has Bill Moseley, and they do the same thing in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. They, you know, go underground, and it has a similar visual aesthetic. But I always think, you know, because Alice in Wonderland is kind of like the original sort of, like, version of these horror movies, in that it's like, I took a wrong turn and I'm gonna be like a tourist. Oh, I can go down there. It has nothing to do with me, like, but I'm gonna go down and, like, figure out what it's all about, and, you know, kind of get, like, screwed over by the local customs and people because I don't know how to behave there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't really think about that connection, but now that you talk about it, I'm like, wow, that really does work. You're so smart, Mike. You're so smart.
No, I just really like bizarre Alice in Wonderland connections.
Was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about with this movie?
I will say one thing that I thought was interesting, and that, to me, then when The Devil's Rejects came out a couple years later, and saw that in theaters, of course, again, it really underlined, and it's the fact that, aside from the beginning and some of the middle part, and obviously the very end, and I know it's beginning, middle, end, whatever, but the focus largely is, and again, this has to do, I think, with Rob Zombie knowing kind of horror history and the history of, like, horror fandoms, is that he knows that what gets taken away by audiences over time is always, like, the killer. Everybody, like, kind of forgets about the youngsters in these movies, or, like, the heroes, and all they remember, and the people that they, like, fan out over and, like, dress up as at conventions and draw fan art of, are almost always, like, the antagonists and the killers and stuff. So I find it very interesting, and knowing that he gave them like such great personalities and great actors and all that, but like he gave them so much more screen time and like developed them a lot more than the kids, except for those moments when the kids are needed to sort of move it forward somewhere. And then, of course you move to the second movie and they are billed. There's not even like, there's no bones about it. They are billed. They are the stars. They are the anti-heroes. And I just thought that was like kind of brilliant, because he's just sort of like, I know that you don't really care. You're not going to remember the names of these people or anything like that. Like, all you're going to remember is like Baby and Otis and all them. So I'm just going to give them like 75% of the screen time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Rob Zombie knows what we want. He always does. All right, well, I think Exilia and me both kind of looked up some facts about it, but I think why don't we rate it first, and then we'll talk about the facts. So, Exilia, this was your choice.
I give it a yay plus.
A yay plus? Oh yeah, I forgot we introduced these pluses and minuses.
Yes, we did. We need gradation, man.
So, reasoning?
It's a good movie. I really like it. I don't know. I don't have any real rationale behind it.
Okay. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to give it a slay, but I will also do yay plus because it has a really, big place in my heart of horror movies, and I think it's incredibly well done. And although it does not have the refinement, shall we say, of his following movies, because it was his first, in terms of like visuals and stuff like that, and maybe a little bit higher budget, it's still, to me, a masterful, like, homage to 70s, like, grindhouse horror, and I can watch it 8 million times more. I don't care. I just think it's brilliant, and I know that there are a lot of naysayers, but, I don't really listen to them. So, yay plus.
2 yay pluses. So, I am going to give it a slay. I fully intended to give it a slay going into it. I definitely, this holds a place in my heart. I love his other movies that came after this, but this will always be my favorite of his. I think without the refinement, I like it, because I liked how raw, how indie it was.
Oh, absolutely. It really worked for the subject matter.
Yeah, and just like, I love the style. I love everything about this movie. I always recommend this movie to people if they haven't seen it. If you want to watch a good horror movie, to me, like, this is a good horror movie. So that is my reason to give it a slay. So yeah, we could talk about some facts. Do you have some facts, Exilia?
Nope, I said them all.
Oh, she said them all in the thing.
She blew her load too soon.
That's right. So I'll just say a couple fun ones that I looked up. So Rob Zombie, and we kind of touched on this, but he said, like, the 2 movies that had the most influence was Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes. Those were his 2 main influences. Another fun fact was, so originally this movie was funded by Universal Studios, but the original cut of it, which has actually never been released, Rob Zombie said they made a lot of cuts because they knew they were going to get an NC-17 rating, so Universal actually shelved it. So this becomes a complicated issue that's kind of interesting. So Rob Zombie, Universal Studios, the theme park, hired Rob Zombie to curate their haunted theme park for Halloween, and the name of it was House of 1,000 Corpses, and that was before he made this movie.
Oh, interesting.
And basically what happened was they were so impressed that the head of Universal said, "Hey, Rob, pitch me a movie." And he made this movie off the top of his head. And the guy was like, "Perfect, give me a couple pages." So he went home, wrote 12 pages that night, submitted them. They said, "Perfect, let's make this movie." Well, once they started to see what this movie was becoming, that it had necrophilia in it and all this kind of stuff, he had to rename the Horror Night to American Nightmare at Universal Studios because they did not want it to be associated with this movie.
Wow.
Which is funny because then when the movie became a cult classic, they invited him to come curate House of a Thousand Corpse Night. And every year from now on, there's always a house there that's dedicated to House of a Thousand Corpses. Universal did not put this movie out. Lionsgate did. Rob Zombie bought the rights back to it so he could shop it to other people. So we brought it up. Dennis Fimple, who plays the grandfather. This was the last movie he shot before he got in that car accident and died. The other just kind of interesting things I thought about when I was looking up stuff about this, I didn't know that Rob Zombie, he actually did animation for Beavis and Butthead Do America. That was his first kind of movie stuff. And he also wrote a undeveloped script for The Crow Salvation.
Oh, wow.
That was supposed to be his first movie thing.
That was not a
just
good
kind
movie. That is the second one, right? That did get made. Was that?
Yeah, it did get made, but they didn't go with his script.
That was not a good movie.
We find out in the second, in the Devil's Rejects, but all the family members' names are first names of Groucho Marx characters. That was his inspiration for that. Also, the movie originally had zero humor in it. Rob Zombie didn't want it to be funny. He wanted it to be brutal, but he said that just kind of came naturally, that, like, people would make jokes while they were on set, and he's like, "Hey, that would work. Yeah. Like, let's do it." And then my last 2 or 3 things here, where we brought it up and we kept saying about the kids. You brought it up, Mike. You're like, no one cares about the kids. So this was Universal Studios' big issue with it, was we want a story about the kids, and Rob Zombie's exact words were in the meeting were, "Fuck the kids. Yes. No one cares about the kids."
Exactly, because he knows what every horror movie, especially like grindhouse slashers and stuff, like,
we want to see those kids dead. Yes.
Even when they're charismatic and charming and stuff like that, they're still not the ones that are remembered.
Exactly. I thought one of the funnier bad reviews I saw was because this was pretty much critically panned. No one liked this. It became a cult classic after. Filmcritic.com, I just took this excerpt because I thought it was funny. They said, "Too highbrow to be good. A good cheap horror movie, too lowbrow to be satire, and too boring to bear the value of the ticket." Boy.
Wow.
If they only knew how much people like this movie.
Yeah, well,
and you know what I didn't do at the beginning?
That's pretty, that's kind of, the energy to devote to criticism such as that, to me, is like, you've got a real issue with this movie, and it might actually be about you. But anyway.
Exactly. And no, I didn't do it at the beginning. I feel like I shamed the people, so I'll do it now. The budget. I always talk about the budget.
Yes.
So the budget was $7 million. That, although people won't stick to that because Rob Zombie... Well, I'll get to that after. What do you guys think it made in the theater?
Oh my goodness.
$30 million for Exilic. Coming in at $30 million.
I don't know. I'd give it probably round about the same, give or take 5 or 6, either way.
So it made $16.8 million. So depending how you look at it, it doubled they spent on it. Now, the issue is that apparently Rob Zombie keeps giving different figures. So the official is 7 million, but he has said that it could be up to 14 million. That ending was not the original ending. They ran out of money. So he said he made a terrible ending because he knew the studio would give him more money to fix the ending. Oh, wow. Which clever. They did.
It's very clever.
So, yeah, and another interesting fact I thought was a lot of the home video sequences that we really enjoyed were out of his pocket, and a lot of them were shot in his basement.
Oh, nice.
Because he added them after the movie was already made. So he just edited them in. So yeah, I thought that was fun little facts. Yeah, and I think that's honestly, we don't have much else to say about this movie, do we?
No, I think we've put a nice bow on it.
So I guess I'll do the normal blurbs. As always, follow us on all social media at It Slays Podcast, Facebook. Always keep a lookout. There's always new polls going up, so you, the people, can pick movies. Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. We want to give a big shout out to Exilia's brother, Zach Herber. He has done our new video intro for YouTube, and we posted it on the Instagram. Check that out. Follow him. He does amazing animation work and logo work. He's going to be designing our t-shirts that hopefully will be coming very, very soon. And, yeah, let's announce the next movie and special guest. So, the next movie is Alien. This was my choice. The first Alien movie, one of my earliest memories of horror. And we are going to have a very special guest for that. Exilia, do you want to announce the special guest?
It is our friend Brad.
Brad Dunn.
Brilliant mind, horror author.
Horror author, superstar. Yeah, is going to come help us tear apart this movie. Well, maybe not tear it apart, but inspect it piece by piece. And we'll have to see what kind of rating we all give it.
He'll take his scalpel to it, that's for sure.
That's right, that's right. Hopefully, because I feel like we're always way too nice on movies.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's all from us this evening. Thank you for listening. We always say the support has been great. The numbers look great. Just always appreciative of everyone taking time to listen. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes, because that helps people find us that might want to hear 3 random people talk about horror movies. So, as always, thank you for listening. I am Rowan.
See you later.
This is Mike saying thanks and bye.